Yeah, and I'll give a little brain science background to it first because there's fascinating research out there on what's called social pain done at UCLA, Naomi Eisinger and Matt Lieberman, her husband, who's a prolific speaker on the idea of social pain. But real quickly, they took people and did it in an fMRI, which right now is the best way we have of looking into the brain. Um, and they had them in an fMRI. They were playing a game of cyberball. So basically, they were controlling this hand that was throwing, it was all animated, throwing a ball to two, and they're told you're playing ball with two other people. And you control throwing the ball, and initially it goes in a triangle, and then the two people stop throwing to you because it's being manipulated by the experimenter. And not unexpectedly, there was limbic arousal. Limbic got triggered. But what was fascinating for these experimenters was not only was that happening, but the neural pathways that get activated in physical pain were getting activated when these people were feeling rejected. And they
Wow.
repeated the experiment. They repeated the experiment, and this time they took half the subjects and said, I can't remember the frequency, take a Tylenol a day for 3 weeks, whatever it was, and the other half didn't have Tylenol. They did the experiment again, and the group that had Tylenol had less activation of those pain pathways. So really, the best way to deal with marital or relationship conflict is just take Tylenol. No. Um, but it is fascinating. And so, like that VP who said to me, emotion has no place at work or feelings, it's like we cannot ignore the role that social connection plays. And Dr. Lieberman talks a lot about all the parts of our brain that evolved to for social connection. And and so I think it's recognizing that. And we said earlier that we want to, our tendency, I think we talked about this actually before we got on recording, but our tendency is the golden rule: treat others the way they want, the way you want to be treated. And really now it's the platinum rule that we understand, which is treat others the way they want to be treated. And whether it's at work or it's in one's own personal life, the more we can understand about each other, rather than looking at differences as a negative, which is our human tendency, is to begin to see differences as opportunities to better understand and connect with someone. And so, I'll give you an example, one that everyone can relate to. There's introverts and there's extroverts, and then we're anywhere on that continuum. I do a lot of work. I'm an extrovert. And I learned my very first facilitation was with this ag company. I was facilitating a day-long strategic plan, 2 days. And I'm an extrovert. I'm like, I'm going to surprise them with what we talk about. Well, let me tell you how critiqued I got for that. Never again did I do that. I always send out an agenda now because and I work with leaders and organizations and teams to think about what do we need to do to make sure that we hear from the introverts. Because very often in our personal relationships, you see that one is more of an introvert, one's more of an extrovert, and they just sort of say, oh yeah, that's just the way we are. But if you really want to hear from the introvert, you need to create time to let them think, and you need to prepare them ahead of time because they need that, and too much social time and they get drained. And so, I think I one of my favorite things to do is work with relationships, again, in and outside of work, but of helping because I remember back in my clinical practice, I did a lot of couples work, and now I call it couples coaching, but where I would ask one or the other's partner a question about what they heard the person say, and then we had asked an open-ended question about whatever it was that was important, and maybe they had argued about money, let's say, and so, okay, I want you to let's just listen and acknowledge each other first. So asked them, what was important for them in this issue. And I can't tell you how many times people turned to me and said, or turned to their partner and said, I never knew you felt that way. Well, because you never asked. And so I think just getting people to stop long enough to be curious about another person's perspective and then acknowledge that perspective goes a long, long way to enhance relationships, again, inside and outside of work. I always say the fastest way to de escalate conflict is to acknowledge what the other person is saying or feeling. Ask and acknowledge, and then they feel validated. You may not agree with them. You don't have to acknowledge and agree, but it's like, oh, I get it. You, whatever, see it this way. And then all of a sudden the conflict starts to, most of the time, not always, but most of the time. Yeah, so I think there's so much we can learn from just recognizing, understanding, asking questions. I tend to like to do, there's a personality assessment I use a lot because it's well validated and it's all based on brain science. And and I use it primarily with teams, and or in a relationship, and it's just fascinating when people begin. It's like the light bulbs go, oh, now I get it. Now I get why your emails to me are so short and curt. You're a results oriented, little time for small talk person, and I'm heavily relationship oriented. No wonder we clash, and finding ways to, instead of seeing that as a negative, of just, oh, I get it. Maybe I need to make my emails a little shorter because I'm losing the person. And that's okay. It's not rude, or they're not being rude to me. So it's, and vice versa. Maybe I need to take a moment and say, hey, Brian, how was your weekend?
Yeah,
But that's
that's a
okay,
requirement with me.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and I really like that. I think there's, when we talk about the dopamine rush and all of these triggers, these positive reactions that we want to manifest, what I found, especially with nonprofit work, is when you do provide that space, the rush of dopamine that it comes up, where people realize we're all in this together and it's okay. It's not me versus the world, to achieve what I want. We're all united in trying to make the world differently in some way. I think that's a real rush. And I think that's the routine that I always work for, with others, in positive affirmations, not to be too, Shirley MacLaine kind of cheesy or anything, but I think it's important to develop these routines to create this safe environment, because we're all in it together.
Yeah. And the negativity, but the research on negativity bias says you need about 8 positives to mitigate one negative.
Yeah.
I actually am a big believer in cultivating a culture of appreciation. And I I tell people the secret ingredient when we give positive feedback is provide the impact. Not just, hey, great job, but when you did that for me, it whatever made it easier for me to go to another task, or it made me feel supported by you, or it was something like that. And that's not just dopamine, oxytocin, which increases trust, and builds trust. So I'm a big believer in, we need to catch people doing and being good way more than catch them doing and being bad. And
I
it's
love
going
that
to enhance.
suggestion. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I'm sorry to cut you off
it's,
there, Catherine. Go ahead.
you,
Oh, sorry, Catherine, your internet seems to be glitching for a moment. We kind of missed you.
oh,
Um,
is it working now?
I think we're all back.
yeah.
Oh, okay. That was weird. I don't know what's
Oh,
happened.
okay. Well, thank you. And I just want to say, there's so much, in the less time that we normally spend with people, I think there's just a rich resource of materials, I think, just in life, that people want to learn about. I'm really happy how things have gone so far. Is there, just in preparation to be able to, wrap things up and, sort of move on. I know Jake and I have another meeting half
Yep.
past the hour. But
Yeah,
is
I do
there anything you wanted to leave us with, Catherine? Just given this conversation.
I guess I would leave with recognize that anything that you do to enhance a sense of reward for people is going to have big payoff, and that don't underestimate the importance of social connection, of creating psychological safety, and believing in people's potential to arrive at their own solutions would probably be the biggest leadership takeaways from this, and learn how to leverage people's strengths and differences.
Oh, that's fantastic. It's letting go. It's hard to let go, and empower others because it's really scary not to be in control. But
Yeah,
great thoughts.
yeah. A
Yeah,
little
you've left us with
humility.
so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, this was fun. Thank you. I'll always love
Thank you
talking
for
to you.
joining us.
Yeah.
I'm glad it was fun. It was a pleasure. Yeah. How can our listeners find you? Where would you like them to find you, if anywhere, Catherine, or reach out to you if they're interested in?
I guess my website. I think the email there comes to me. So yeah.
Awesome.
Oh, great.
And the website is
Brainbasedstrategies.com.
Brain-Based Strategies.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Or my name at Gmail is really the easiest, fastest way.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks, you
And you're
guys.
okay with
You,
yeah.
Oh,
you
fantastic.
Thank you
you
so
made it
much.
easy. All right.
Yeah, I'm going to
Take
stick
care.
around to download the recording and such, but feel free to, I'm going to end the stream now. So